So, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Full card predictions for UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura, Rakhmonov versus Garry, the co-main event. So, before I get into the video, I know last video, maybe the audio wasn't super duper high. I have a pair of XM5s, Sony XM5s, AirPods, stuck in them in, played the video on full volume, and I could hear the audio, but you know, some of the hate I was getting was just unnecessary. You know, a lot of you guys are super duper cool, which I appreciate. But, you know, on Twitter, I was getting like death threats and stuff like over a YouTube video where I'm giving out value, giving out my expertise. If you disagree, that's cool. But yeah, that was mad. Obviously, like, I don't want to be internet tough guy, but just like you wouldn't be getting that kind of interaction in person, right? Because there's like real life consequences. You might get like a John Jones oblique kick or something. But jokes aside, please follow me up on Twitter at @TheMMALewis, because you know I need to dilute some of the hate on there. Obviously, I've got some nice messages, etc. And also on Twitter, I'm going to be a bit more active. If you want to message me, my DMs are open. I'm going to start tweeting out more often, drop value, etc. And make sure to like, share, comment on the video, show support, and that super duper appreciate it, super duper motivating. Check out the Patreon as well for my bets, my written breakdowns. We've been on a roll, and yeah, if you need mentoring or whatever, Patreon's the place to be. So without further ado, let's get right into the breakdowns. So for the first fight of the night, we got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Brzeski. This is a short notice fight. Kennedy coming in on short notice. You can see why. Last win was fairly comfortable for him. There's another kind of, I feel like, a decent matchup for him. So still though, we don't truly know how Kennedy's going to be able to settle into the heavyweight weight class. You know, he was given a softball matchup against the guys Chris Barnett, and arguably here you could argue that he's getting quite a good matchup as well. He does have good skills though, Kennedy. You know, he's long, he's rangy, he's quite a technical boxing striker. Put the pressure on his opponents. You know, he's got some natural athletic ability, even though he's like 6'3" and he's got like an 83-inch reach. And, you know, he's quite effective in the clinch as well. And he's even got a few kind of submission wins as well. Obviously, saying all that, I do have some concerns with Kennedy. His chin. Definitely question his chin. I also a little bit concerned about his fight IQ. You know, I think he's prone to making bad in-fight decisions. And, you know, another potential layer of risk is that can be quite a bit of a slow starter. You know, he can be prone to dropping in round one. So the question is, for me, obviously, I do think Kennedy is the more likely victor in this matchup, but you know, we're talking betting lines, you're talking like 1.17. You know, you're gonna have some question marks, right? So, you know, could I see Brzeski kind of chinning Kennedy in round one? You know, it's possible, especially at heavyweight, right? Also, another worry is that's my main worry actually. Kind of Brzeski kind of just clipping Kennedy round one. Maybe Kennedy could be winning 2-3 rounds. Brzeski comes in, hit him with a hard shot, but overall, you know, I have to go with Kennedy as a pick just because I trust his gas tank more. I trust him going into round 2, round 3 more. I think he could push a higher pace. I just think he's the fighter with like more potential, more upside. But, you know, the betting line reflects confidence, right? So you odds around 1.17 for Kennedy. You're not getting any real discount to be able to back Kennedy in this matchup. So, yeah. Overall, though, have to go with Kennedy as a pick. So, next fight here, we got Guida, legend of the sport, OG of the fight game. Big ups Guida 1,000 times, man. This guy, he's 42. And, you know, for a 42-year-old, he's not looking too bad, but he's definitely getting up there. He's had a long fighting career, taken a lot of trauma. He's coming up against Chiesa. Now, this to me feels like a set-up spot from the UFC. The UFC's not doing Guida any favours at all here. This is a classic set up spot for Hooper, give the young prospect a big name, favourable matchup on paper anyways. So Hooper should really dominate here. If not, just be the more likely winner, because he's 25 years old versus 42. He's starting to grow into his frame. He's starting to build that kind of man strength. He's also got some pretty kind of tricky grappling and BJJ. And even his striking's developing. Even his striking's not looking too bad. And, he's very tough. He's got a good chin. He's got durability. So he's got a lot of good things going for him. And I'm just really starting to feel like he's just starting to come together overall as a package of a fighter now. So obviously, high confidence on Chase Hooper. The betting line reflects that, right? So betting line, he's around 1.10. Obviously, I think the line's justified. You can't be giving out Hooper 1.20 minus 400. Then if you're the bookmaker, you're just setting yourself up for failure. The market will correct you. So Hooper being a big time favorite, completely justified in my opinion. Obviously, some of you guys probably want to put him into your parlays. I can see why it is a high confidence pick, but there's probably maybe a little bit of value, I don't know, on him. But as a straight bet, I can't bet him as a straight bet. Adding him to parlays adds minimal upside, but potentially exposes you to some risk if Guida is somehow able to pull the upset. So Hooper should get a jump. Now, next fight here we got Michael Chiesa versus Max Payne Griffin. What a nickname, man. If you know your gaming, Max Payne, sick game in the back in the day. So Chiesa, he's predominantly a grappler, a wrestler. That's his game, that's his style. Now, I do think he is quite a tricky, sticky BJJ style of grappler. I think he uses his length well in grappling positions. And yeah, when I watch him, I go, yeah, this guy's got some sticky BJJ and grappling. That's the way I kind of describe Chiesa. But saying that, I do have some concerns about him. I do think he's quite flaky. I think he's prone to kind of wilting, quitting in there, getting uncomfortable. Talking of being uncomfortable, his striking's never really kind of developed to a competent level. I think that's a big weakness in his game. Against higher caliber strikers, he's going to struggle. So he needs to get the fight down to the ground, wrestle, grapple. And also another thing about Chiesa is that he's been very inactive. He hasn't really been taking a lot of fights. He's just been fighting very infrequently. So he might just be collecting paychecks at this point. He got a nice kind of layup matchup against Tony Ferguson. Obviously, he's a commentator inside the UFC, so to get that matchup, he's probably got some good connections, etc. So yeah, a little bit skeptical about Chiesa at this stage of his career. So this fight's an easy fight dynamic. We've got the wrestler in Chiesa, and we've got the striker in Max Griffin. Griffin's going to want to keep the fight standing, defend the takedowns. I think he is the better. I do think he's the better striker. So this fight's tricky to call, in my opinion, just because I'm a little unsure on what kind of version of Chiesa we're getting. A few years ago, I'd be all over Chiesa probably, but at the same time, I think Max Griffin, he seems more kind of serious about fighting, and I think obviously he's probably a bit more on the tail end now because he's 39. But a couple of years ago, I thought Max Griffin's one of those guys who's kind of peaked and got better later on in his career as he's built up experience. So when it comes to grappling and wrestling, we haven't really seen Griffin get tested by a proper wrestler recently. He's been taken down a few times, but he's popped straight back up to the feet. But yeah, tough fight, man, this one. Hard to get a really strong read. I mean, I agree with Griffin being the slight betting favourite. That's how I would line it. I'd have Griffin slight favourite. So I can kind of see why people being taking Chiesa plus 140, plus 150. I do get that angle, I really do. Personally, not really too interested in this one from a betting perspective, but I do kind of agree with Griffin being the slight favourite. That's how I'd cap it, just because he's been a bit more serious about fighting. He's been more active. He's probably hungrier, should we say. So yeah, with all that, I'm going to go with Max Griffin, but good fight, I think. Intriguing matchup. Quite interesting dynamic. So, next fight here, we got a banger of a matchup. Probably one of the fights I'm most looking forward to on this card. And get me. So we got Josh Van versus Cody Durden. We got Dan Levy's boy. Big up Dan Levy, OG of MMA predictions. Check him out. Best fight picks. You know, he might be able to give you guys some solid insight on Cody Durden. But you know, I'll start off with Josh Van. So Josh Van is a very young, talented fighter. I definitely think he's a little bit undersized for flyweight. A lot of these flyweights are bantamweights fighting down at 125, right? They're all kind of like weight bullies. Just checking my microphones on. One thing I really like about Josh Van is he brings a very, very skilled boxing skill set inside the cage. I think his boxing is lovely. You know, pushes a high pace, high pressure, would dig to the body. Just, I think when I see his striking, when I see his boxing, I see like a it factor there, especially inside MMA. I think his boxing's very, very solid for MMA standards. Now, it's offensive wrestling. It looked decent against Chires. You know, he's got some takedowns, etc. there. I do think he's an okay defensive grappler from what I've seen. We haven't really seen his defensive grappling get strongly tested by like a strong wrestler / grappler yet. So I do feel like there's some unknowns there. But he's a young fighter. He's probably going to be developing fight to fight 100%. The thing, it was that fight against the Brazilian that's skipping my mind, but he got taken down twice, I think. Sorry, the name skipping my mind. Got mounted, but reverse position. So from what I've seen, it's okay, but I know I do have some question marks still. He's often a fighter who can drop round one and lose it. He's definitely, I feel like, a slow starter. You know, that could possibly make for a better live betting entry kind of position. At one point, not that long ago, a couple months ago, I was super duper high on Josh Van. I saw him as like a top prospect, but I've kind of halted on hype a bit because I'm just not 100% convinced with his chin. I also think he doesn't make the best kind of career management decisions. Like, he's a young, talented fighter on the rise. He shouldn't be taking fights every 1 to 2 months, taking fights after getting knocked out. That's just not good career management. And I'm a little bit concerned about his durability. I've seen his chin get tested a lot. So, yeah. And the fight against Chires was not a nice, easy, dominant victory. You know, I had to dig deep and really grit it out. So I would like to have seen him take a little bit more time. Before that, he got knocked out by CJ. Obviously, CJ is very, very solid. But again, would have liked to seen him maybe take like 6 months off. But I kind of get where he's coming from. You know, you're probably up 2 rounds on the scorecards, and you want to get back in there, get that kind of losing feeling out of there. It's a bit like losing a bet. You know, you lose a bet, you just want to get back the next one. Now, obviously, Van's going to want to keep the fight standing, defend the takedowns, and box up Cody Durden. So Durden, I've been impressed with Durden as well. I think he's been making developments fight to fight. And, you know, I think he's really grown and settled as a UFC fighter now. He brings like a high kind of pressure, aggressive wrestle boxer type of game. I think striking's solid, and you will really swing for it. Maybe not like as technical of a boxer compared to Josh Van, but he'll make up for it by pushing a pace and really swinging for it. And I think his offensive wrestling and grappling is solid. It's okay. I don't consider him like a top tier grappler, but I think it's decent. Now, pick prediction. I mean, I slightly favour Josh Van here because I do think he is the fighter with more potential, more upside. I do think he is the better kind of overall striker slash boxer. I wish I could be a little bit more confident in Josh Van here, but I am worried about his durability. I do respect Cody Durden. I don't think Cody Durden's like a pushover joke of a fighter, and I'm worried about a little bit of his frequent activity. I'd like to see him take time off, fight to fight. Maybe he needs the paychecks, wants to get back in there, keep up the momentum. And I am a little bit worried about the potential kind of grappling hole he might have. We don't really truly know, but I think from what I've seen, I think I'd rather side with Josh Van's side. Now, from a betting perspective, if we can open up Fight Best Fight Odds, actually fightodds.io, we see that Josh Van is around a 1.65 favourite. So, you know what? I think the line's fair. I think the line's accurate in my opinion. Maybe you could argue there's some kind of value on it. Personally, I feel like this is quite a complex fight. I think you can make a strong argument for either side. Maybe a few months ago, I'd have been all over Josh Van here, but he has shown some chinks in his armor, and I do think this fight could potentially be kind of messy, get gritty. I think both fighters are good, bring a solid skill set. Maybe Josh Van could even be a better live betting entry. So yeah, I'm going to go with Josh Van. Probably, I could see a late TKO, but then I could see a decision as well. So tricky one from that standpoint. So we got a rebook fight here. Now, to be honest here, I don't really have a lot of passion to break down this fight because I taped it first time round and I just thought, I don't really trust either guy. This is just a mess of a fight. I just wouldn't want to put serious money and trust either of these guys to really come through and secure the victory for me. So from that point of view, it's been a complete pass. All I'm going to say is that this line should be probably around a pick'em. I think first time round, obviously the fight got cancelled. I think you got a little bit unlucky if you had plus 150 Weidman tickets, plus 140. But at the moment, I think the current line is accurate. Probably line is pick'em. Maybe you can have a slight lean towards one of the guys. If that's how you feel strongly about it. So if you want a more detailed insight on the fight, check out the previous card that this fight was on. But yeah, mess of a fight. Both guys are just super duper hard to trust at this stage of their career, and pick'em line seems fair to me. But if you want the more kind of detailed breakdown, check out the previous card that this fight was on. So next fight here, we got a really, really good, intriguing matchup here between Randy Rude Boy Brown and Brian the Butcher Battle. Used to be called Pooh Bear. And I think Randy Brown, he might be a big fan of Rihanna. Rude Boy, who knows? I'm just guessing. Hopefully he doesn't come after me, but don't worry, Randy. I like Rihanna too. Rihanna's got some bangers. Anyways, so Battle, I think he started to really kind of grow and develop as a fighter overall. I think he's developing very, very nicely. I like the kind of career trajectory he's been making. I think at first I was a little bit kind of worried about him moving down to welterweight because I always thought he was quite a big middleweight, but he's a massive, massive welterweight. His back is wide, and he probably got the weight cut down to a science now, and he's able to cut the weight kind of safely. But yeah, very impressed with the improvements he's been making. I think he's very, very strong in a clinch. He's able to use his size, use his physicality on his opponents. And I also think his striking's been developing. It's been improving. I think he throws a little bit kind of harder on his strikes. And I think his striking looks a lot more kind of refined. It looks a lot more clean. It looks a lot more technical over the years that he's been proven. From what I saw in the middleweight days, his striking wasn't bad. But now it looks like, his striking's kind of gone to that next level. Good range of shot selections, kicks, punches, teeps. He'll mix it all up. Now, and another thing I really, really like about Brian Battle is that he's extremely tough. He will fight hard for your money. and he's extremely durable, which is a nice bonus, right? If you're putting money down on him, you want a fighter who's going to fight hard, won't give up on themselves, can take a hard shot. And another thing I really like about Battle is that he's able to fight at different ranges, different tempos. Like against Gore, he was fighting on the outside, he was kind of counter-striking, trying to avoid Gore's big power, big shots, while against Juicy, in his most recent fight, he was on one, putting the pressure, he was on the front foot, is able to fight at different tempos. So, normally, these two guys, Randy Brown and Battle, they're kind of used to having like size and physicality advantages over their opponents, but I think they're very, very well matched length and physicality wise in this matchup. I think Battle might be a little bit stronger, but I'm talking about like height and reach. Normally these two are going to have some advantages over their opponents when it comes to that area. Randy Brown, very tall, lengthy, welterweight. He likes to use his height and reach advantages by kind of like picking at his opponents, using long range weapons like straight punches, teeps, and using good footwork to kind of dance around. I do think he's a guy who's been developing as well over the years. I think he's pretty technically proficient everywhere the fight goes. I don't think he's going to be like a top 5 guy, but I think he's a good solid like welterweight. I'm a little bit worried about his durability. I think he's shown weakness in that area with his chin, and I feel like he can be got at. So, I'm leaning towards Bryan Battle here. I just have a gut feeling he's just going to be able to find a way to dog it out. But, I do think Randy Brown, he's probably going to want to be the one kind of dancing around the cage, picking that Battle and trying to grind out a decision. Then Battle's going to be the one kind of pushing the pace. He's going to be the one coming forwards. So my gut says Battle. I have to ride with it, but I think this is it's a well-matched fight, and I think it's a dangerous fight. So we go over to the betting line. We're seeing Battle around 1.57. Now, I don't know what this line's going to do. I can totally see why people are going to want to bet on Rude Boy Brown. I get it. So, maybe Battle gets up to a, like that kind of 1.6, 1.65 range, and then I'm going to have a real headache on what to do with this fight. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Battle. I think I could see him getting a KO, but at the same time, I could see a decision as well. But then again, when I look at this fight and analyze it from my perspective, obviously, there's some respected Randy Brown money. I just have to kind of lean towards the side of Battle, but I can see why people would want to bet Randy Brown. I don't think he's completely out of this fight. I think he can, there's a path there for him to kind of dance around, chip at Battle. But yeah, give me Battle in this spot. I like the developments and the improvements and the career trajectory that he's been on as a fighter. So we've got a really quite intriguing matchup in my opinion. This is probably one of the fights I'm most looking forward to. We've got Aljamain Sterling, former champion, versus facing the up-and-coming rising talent at featherweight in Evloev. So Sterling, former champion, high-level fighter down at 135. I still think he's a good fighter. I think that generally the weight cut's probably a good thing for him because he's obviously killing himself to make 135, and because of his natural frame and size. And against Keita, I liked what I saw. Very tricky, crafty wrestler / grappler. That's obviously where his strengths lie. Very physically big, very kind of physically imposing when it comes to his wrestling, his grappling, and his back take is nasty. Striking's solid. Obviously, his strength is the wrestling and grappling, but you can put up a lot of volume on the feet and blend everything together. The wrestling, the grappling well. And Aljamain Sterling's resume is no joke, man. If you go through his record, see the level of competition he's faced, the wins he's got, it's got to be respected. So Mosva, another guy for a while that I thought I've been impressed. A fighter who I've liked for quite a while. Obviously, the betting market likes him as well. He's always a big favourite. And so far, he's justified each time he's come out that he should be a big favourite. So he's mainly got like a boxing footwork style of attack. I think his striking's good. I like his striking a lot. One thing maybe he doesn't have is he doesn't have stopping power. So he's kind of pillow fisted, but does a good job of throwing volume, securing rounds with his striking, and he also has good wrestling, good grappling, Dagestani style of wrestling, grappling, and even if he's taken down, he's got good scramble ability. So one thing I've always noticed about Evloev is that he can get caught up in these kind of choke positions against Grundy, against Nick Lentz, Lopez. That's kind of a weakness stuff. Maybe I'm overthinking things, but that's something that's kind of always stood out with me with the Evloev side. But overall, when you put it all together, you got two really kind of high caliber, high level fighters. So this fight here, I know there's a lot of confidence on Evloev, and I probably do agree with Evloev being the betting favourite here. But I can't help and feel like the line's maybe a bit wide. I can't help but feel that Aljo is probably a live underdog. It's getting a little bit disrespected. I love Evloev. I've loved him for a while, but I wouldn't be rushing out to bet him at 1.40 because I don't look at Aljo and think he's a weak opponent. So, yeah, I'd probably have Evloev maybe 1.6. That's the kind of line I'd probably line him at. I know some of you guys are probably going to strongly disagree with me there. So, yeah, while I favour Evloev, I don't think the line offer significant value. Aljamain at the end of the day, fight's never going to go smooth, right? But Aljamain at the end of the day, former champion, he brings a solid skill set to the table, and he's very, very physically strong, high level wrestler, high level grappler, and he could be a tricky opponent for Evloev. And I think as a general rule, he's a tricky opponent for everyone inside the division. So yeah, Evloev's going to be the pick, I suppose, but I think the line's a bit wide. That's my opinion, though. I know some of you guys are going to strongly disagree with me on that one. So we got Gorimbo versus Vicente Luque. Now, this to me is quite a tricky, complex fight. When I first looked at the lines, Gorimbo, he was one of the fighters where I was like, maybe Gorimbo here is worthy of a big kind of top ticket play. Put a couple G's on it. That was my kind of feeling. I thought Luque completely washed, completely shot. I saw the money was coming in on Luque, and I was a bit unsure. But when I looked into it, I became kind of less confident in this one because Gorimbo, he's obviously a fighter that the UFC is kind of trying to push, right? He's got the Rock love. They're giving him kind of good matchups. Makes sense, You got Rock, one of the biggest superstars outside the world. He's massive. He's got a push with him. Probably promotes his fights on Instagram, etc. So when it comes to his fighting game, though, what he brings to the table, he's a little bit powerful when it comes to striking. He's definitely got kind of some natural kind of ability, natural athleticism. I do think he feels a kind of little bit kind of raw overall. He feels very, very raw as a fighter. You kind of get that sense that he's not been in a fight game for many. He's not lifelong trained, if that makes sense. That's the kind of vibe I get. But he's a big, physical, strong guy. He'll push his opponents up against a clinch, utilize his length, utilize his size, look to wear on his opponents. And, if he hits you, I want to be on the end of that. I think he can fight hard for 3 rounds. Obviously, I have question marks for 5 rounds. But I feel like he does start to kind of huff and puff after 1 round. And he definitely is a fighter, who really does kind of rely on his athleticism and his size. So, Luque, Luque at one point was definitely like a top 10, top 15 guy. He's very, very skilled. I like the skill set he brings to the table, iron chin. Well, that we're talking about the old Luque bring forward like a high pressure, highly aggressive style of fighting. They're going to keep coming forwards. Good technique on his kickboxing. He's able to secure dash chokes. He's well trained. He trains at Henry Hoof, Killcliff. They probably change the name again, but he's been in a lot of tough wars, man. A lot of tough wars. So in fight years, he's definitely feels like almost kind of at the tail end of his career, just based on the fight years. Almost feel like he'd probably kind of washed, because against against RDA, he's really kind of pushing the clinch a lot. He was very, very kind of weary of the striking exchanges. He did not want to engage in the striking at all. He was forced to kind of use the clinch. He was coming off like a brain hemorrhage, etc. So after that, Jeff Neal knockout. And against Buckley, Buckley's solid. I like Buckley, but it looked like he kind of wilted and quitted in there. While historic in the past, he's a guy who's never kind of wilts like that. So at the same time, I'm not in love with Gorimbo. He just feels extremely raw. So this to me is a complex fight. I mean, if we get Luque from 2-3 fights ago, I think he gives Gorimbo a tough fight, probably even smokes him. But this is really tricky, complex fight, because I could see a scenario where we get Luque from 2-3 fights ago, maybe like a little bit of a watered down version, able to survive that kind of round 1 storm, take over as round 2, round 3 progresses. Or I could see Gorimbo just KOing Luque in round 1, making quick work of him. So yeah, this is an extremely dangerous fight, complex fight in my opinion. We go to the betting line. I mean, I see why the money's been coming on Luque at that kind of plus 150, plus 160 kind of range. I don't know if I want to put money on this one, to be honest. It just feels really dangerous, to be honest with you. Like, I have a hard time trusting either guy. But the tape kind of says Luque, but the kind of, the career trajectories, the kind of Luque could be on a way out, says Gorimbo, you could catch him in round 1, get a knockout. It's just, yeah, tricky fight, man. Tricky fight. But there's so many X factors going against Luque. So yeah, I don't know what to do with this one, even for a pick. I have to think about it. But from a betting perspective, it's probably quite an easy pass for me. But I think there's strong opinions on both the Luque side and the Gorimbo side. So maybe you guys disagree on this one, but hopefully, some of my insights can help guide your decision. Got Dom Reyes versus Smith. Dom Reyes, I don't want to go too in deep on this one because I'm not really loving it, but good chance that he's washed. Doesn't look like the same fighter since the John Jones fight, which I felt like he won 3 rounds to 2. So if anyone's been screwed, it's been Dom Reyes. Southpaw, athletic, good left hand, good movement, but took a lot of damage against Jiri, took a lot of damage against Jan, and recently Ryan Spann killed him. Did get KO in round 1 against Jacoby, but I still obviously have my concerns, my doubts, and I'm not really too kind of comfortable betting him ever until we see a little bit more. But at the same time, I'm not really interested in betting Smith, to be honest. Just what worries me about Smith is he's taken a lot of damage as well. He's 36. He's had a lot of fights. Look at a record, 38-20. He's had a long career. He's moving extremely slow. So obviously, I do favour Reyes. I just think he's faster, sharper, quicker. But I'm not in love with the betting line of being forced to pay up a premium. You're not getting any discounts here, in my opinion. So yeah, not super duper passionate about it from a betting perspective, but as a pure pick, I suppose I agree with Reyes being a favourite. So we got a fight here between, I almost said Royce Gracie, big ups a legend like him. We got Kron Gracie versus Bryce Mitchell. So this fight here, I think Gracie, he's very kind of unserious about fighting. I think his heart's not really in the game. I think he was kind of pressured and forced into fighting by his family. I think I remember a couple of years ago, I saw like a news article of him saying he wanted to be like a skateboarder. So I think he's probably taking this fight for like a paycheck. He's supposedly like a BJJ specialist, but I think his BJJ is overrated. I remember he was a big favourite over Cub Swanson. That was a big win for me back in the day on Cub. That really helped grow my bankroll. So yeah, especially when you're starting out, right, you kind of need that kind of those bankroll boosters. But anyways, I'm going off topic, but he's going to come forwards. He's going to take punches, and he's going to put pressure on his opponents. He's got boxing as the main form of attack. I do think he's durable. I do think he's tough. But at least I don't think his boxing's the best. I don't think his striking's the best. But at least he comes forwards. Puts the pressure on. That's enough to win a lot of fights, right? Like, maybe one guy's super duper skilled everywhere, technically proficient, but if one guy's a zombie, comes forward, takes all your punches, and just right in your face, that could be unsettling for the opponent. And especially in the regionals, lower levels, a lot of those dudes kind of crumble out of adversity. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Mitchell, but something to keep in mind, right? So his last fight was like 6 months ago. Took that fight against Durden, and he looked shocking, man. I know there's a lot of money coming on Gracie, and they thought he was going to have some grappling upside, but he showed no offensive wrestling or grappling takedown ability. He just looked really, really slow. He just came forwards like a zombie. Was outclassed. Had Durden in his guard. Durden was just playing it safe, playing it careful. Couldn't really go for an armbar or a triangle. He had nothing from his guard. So yeah, and now he's 36. There's even been more time. I saw him training on Instagram with his boxing. I don't think his boxing's improved that much at all. So Mitchell, on the other hand, I like Mitchell. I think he's a pretty kind of solid, strong wrestler, grappler for featherweight. His game is built on his wrestling and grappling. He's not just like a lay and pray guy either. You look for submissions, you look for dominance. Obviously, his striking is nowhere near as developed as his wrestling and grappling. But, it's probably more kind of technically proficient than Gracie, if we're just going like skill for skill. And he's probably got more kind of experience in striking in MMA as a whole. But Gracie maybe could, make up for that kind of gap by just coming forwards, being a zombie, making Mitchell uncomfortable in his striking exchanges. But also another thing to keep in mind with Mitchell is that he's coming off one of the worst knockouts I've seen in recent UFC history against Josh Emmett. That fight was 11 months ago. I think he took the right amount of time off. But there could be kind of lingering effects from that knockout. That was brutal stuff, man. That was brutal. I remember a lot of money coming on Mitchell in that Emmett fight, and I was part of the steam. Luckily you won that night, but yeah, those are ones where you destroy the line movement. You're like, yeah, I'm really feeling it. Crush the line and bang, instant finish. But yeah, anyways, I'm going off topic again, but Mitchell, he's been in there with tough guys, man. If you look at his level of competition, he faced a champion. He's definitely been in there with a higher level caliber of fighters, got more experience in the fight game. So I have to pick Mitchell. It's the logical pick, right? There's no way I'm going to be confidently picking Kron Gracie in a UFC fight, but it's like one of those where Mitchell's going to probably want to wrestle on grapple, right? And he's going to be playing into Kron Gracie's wheelhouse. So maybe, Kron could cause some issues there. And maybe striking-wise, Kron come forwards, grit it out, and kind of outstrike Mitchell maybe with pace and pressure. I'm only saying these things because, talking a 1.14 price tag, there's like no kind of margin for error. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I think the betting line's fair. I think it's accurate. But personally, I probably wouldn't want to be putting a serious ticket on Mitchell. I think the line's accurate. I think the line's fair. It could be a situation where Mitchell is playing right into Gracie's wheelhouse, which is the grappling. So Mitchell's going to be the pick. And I think the betting line is accurate. So we've got should be, I imagine, a violent fight between Landwehr versus Choi. Who knows? It might end up being a boring decision type of matchup. Everyone's expecting violence, but yeah, you know how these things go sometimes. So Landwehr, this guy's a dog, fan favorite. He's going to come forwards, put the pressure on his opponents, maybe even come forward a bit recklessly, really try to put it on them, make the fight a brawl, make it dirty, make it gritty. And, he makes it work because he's not going to be like the most technically proficient fighter. But I feel like he can get chinned. He's prone to getting clipped. He's prone to getting just out-skilled by better fighters. And he's definitely not bulletproof. We've seen him drop multiple times in fights. But I think with his abilities, he makes this game work. So Choi, he's been very, very inactive, right? He's had commitments to the military in Korea. And, at one point this guy was considered a top prospect. But I think the inactivity and his chin just not being there has just completely kind of halted his hype, halted his potential, sadly. So Choi brings a boxing attack. I think he's got a nice straight shot. And recently he's added a low kick that he goes to. I don't think Choi's takedown defense is bulletproof, but I think he does do a good job of doing the right things, working his way back up to the feet. And yeah, I think this is mainly going to be a striking fight. If anyone mixes up I could see either guy mixing up the wrestling and grappling, but I think if I had to bank on it, it's mainly going to be a striking fight. So this is a fight where I could see either guy getting hurt, getting wobbled. So in that sense, the fight feels dangerous. As a pure pick, slightly actually one more thing. I think maybe, obviously it's a little bit of speculation, but Choi could be the one making developments, making improvements, and maybe got rid of some cobwebs against Alja. Like I said, he's been very, very inactive. So if anyone's making improvements, it's probably going to be Choi. If anyone's declining, it's probably going to be Landwehr. How they match up, I think these two probably going to clash. I think it's going to be a striking fight. I think it's probably going to be violent, but have to slightly lean towards Nate Train personally. Low to maybe medium, low confidence. I was going to say low to medium. It's just hard to feel mega confident about it, but just feel like Choi is looking quite shaky in the past couple of fights. But at the same time, I could see maybe dinging Landwehr. The fight just feels dangerous overall, but I just have to slightly lean towards Landwehr here, just because even though he's not the most technically refined fighter, he's gone in there. He went to a draw with Onama, who's a beast. He actually beat Ludovic Klein back in 2021. I know Ludovic Klein's been making developments, making improvements, but that win's no joke. But yeah, I have to just slightly lean towards Landwehr, but not one where I think if you're targeting the Choi side from a betting perspective or the Landwehr side, you can go in with just mega confidence and just know your money is completely 100% safe pre-fight. Maybe you guys might have a strong, different read, different feel, and you may feel differently about it. And with hindsight, one guy looks like major value, great bet, etc. But from what I see, I feel like this fight's probably going to be quite dangerous. So, for the featured bout of the evening, we got a rematch between Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Gane, he's very, very elusive. He's got lovely footwork, and he moves extremely well for heavyweight. He almost moves like a middleweight, maybe even a welterweight. You don't see any heavyweights that can utilize the footwork like he does, probably potentially ever. And even in the lower weight classes, there's not many guys who can bring that kind of style like he does, and he can keep it up for 3 rounds, 5 rounds, So yeah, and he's also got very clean technical striking for heavyweight standards. Not much of a power guy. I know he got finished against Spivak, but he's more of a volume decisionator type of fighter, which is no disrespect. I really like his striking. Very elusive, clean, technical, stays out of danger, great defense. Really like what I see from Gane. Now Volkov, he's also a solid heavyweight in my opinion. He mainly uses his height, he uses his reach. He's got good boxing, striking fundamentals. I like his teep kick, digs to the body, uses his length. I mean, I do think he's a little bit kind of slow, a little bit plodding. However, overall, I do think there's a solid fighter there. Now, this is a rematch. Gane won the first fight pretty comfortably. Maybe round 1 could have gone to Volkov, but as the fight progressed, Gane kind of showed his striking. He was frustrating Volkov. He just looked like a step or 2 above Volkov with the speed, with the kind of in and out, and just, Volkov had a rough day in the office. Now, in a rematch, as a general rule, I tend to like to side with the guy who won the first fight. Obviously, each fight's different, right? Each rematch is different, so you can't just use that as a blanket statement. But I have to go with Gane here personally. I just think he won the first fight quite comfortably. I just think he is the more kind of elusive, faster, sharper striker. It's a heavyweight fight at the end of the day, but I don't really see like a KO threat from either guy. So yeah, Gane's going to be the pick. From a betting perspective, I think Gane's been getting most of the money. Last time I checked, he was around 1.29. Let's see, yeah. So 1.29 for Gane. I think a lot of the value's being kind of extracted from the betting line. I think the betting line's accurate. I think if you got around that 1.40, you probably made a decent kind of straight bet. Or that's Shavkat Rakhmonov, but both the same price. Just keep that in mind. So yeah, I like Gane to get probably a decision victory in this matchup. So go to the co-main event of the evening. I don't think there's a belt on the line here, an interim belt. This is going to be a sick fight, man. I think this is 2 very kind of talented prospects, could you say, going at it. Even if one guy takes a loss here, I think they're going to have a strong career inside the UFC. I like both fighters. I've cashed on both fighters, so yeah, this is a good fight. I think they were training partners as well. I think they sparred a few times, so who knows? One might have the kind of like psychological edge, but sparring shouldn't matter too much, I imagine, in the cage. So we'll start off with Shavkat. So Shavkat is an extremely well-rounded fighter, an athlete. He's definitely got that kind of fighting genetic gene. His striking is it's very crisp. It's very technically proficient and powerful as well. Especially love his straight shots. He's got nasty knees, even got good kicks. He's a strong grappler as well. He's very effective and nasty in the clinch. He'll really kind of try and hurt you, cause damage in that kind of clinch position, go for knees, go for elbows. And he can offensively grapple. So overall, when you put it all together, I just see like a really kind of elite level fighter with very kind of refined skill set in all areas of MMA, striking, clinching, grappling, maybe some flaws. Like, I'm kind of clutching the straws here. Maybe a little bit kind of hittable with the lack of head movement. I feel like his head's a bit stationary, but let's be real, I'm kind of clutching the straws here. He's very, very tough. You know, that Jeff Neal fight, he took some hard shots from there. You know, kept coming forwards. So I think his chin is pretty much rock solid. I remember watching some regional fights back in the day. He got dropped in one of the fights. Still came forwards and won. So he's got that toughness. He's got that durability. I think he can fight through tough periods, which I like, right? So some of these prospects that come through, they look amazing. You know, everything's going their way. But at the first sign of adversity, they crumble. You don't want that, right? Especially if you're putting money on them. So Ian Garry, another guy, like, I think he's very, very talented, man. Like, you know, I'm not a big fan of the vegan diet thing. I think that's a red flag. I'm not really a fan of the whole outside of the cage stuff, you know. But talking skill set inside the cage, you know, very talented. Definitely the kind of new generation of fighter. Great striking. Both his hands, kicks, knees, sharp, clean, solid technique. Very good footwork, very, very good movement. I think that's one of his kind of keys. It's his movement, his lateral footwork. And you showcased competent offensive grappling skill set against MVP. I thought that was a smart game plan for him, mixing up the wrestling, mixing up the grappling. Obviously, I still think his main strength is the striking. I don't see him kind of using the grappling against Shavkat at all. I think if there's any grappling, clinch exchanges, it's going to favour Shavkat. So, yeah, like, I like what I see from Garry. I think he's tough as well. He got dropped by Kinan Song. People hold that against him, but, you know, he didn't crumble, kept coming forwards, ended up getting a knockout. So, I imagine Garry is probably going to be the one wanting to kind of keep the fight standing. You know, kind of use his footwork, use his lateral movement, kind of dance around the cage, avoid that kind of like pocket brawl kind of exchanges. While Shavkat, I think, is going to be the one kind of moving forwards, trying to really kind of put it on Garry, not let Garry use his footwork, use his movement, dance around the cage. I think if that kind of long range distance fight probably favours Garry, but I think Shavkat's going to come forwards, try and put the pressure on Garry, land some hard shots, mix up the clinch, mix up the wrestling. So, yeah, that's how I think the fight's going to play out. So, I have a hard time picking against Shavkat, to be honest with you. Like, we'll go over to the betting line in a minute, but I have a hard time picking against Shavkat. Just, you know, when people say aura, I feel like this dude has aura. But at the same time, I think Garry's a very, very young, talented fighter, and I don't want to write him off at all. So, betting line, you're getting around 1.28 for Shavkat. You're definitely being forced to pay up a premium. All his advantages and his aura are being baked into the betting line. But, you know, I keep saying it, but I do think Garry's a young, talented fighter who's very, very respectable, high skill set. So, you know, definitely being forced to pay up a premium. But as mentioned, I have a hard time picking against Shavkat. So yeah, I have to, as a pure pick, have to go with Shavkat. But from a betting perspective, I think all of his advantages are being baked into the line. And I don't think you'd be getting any discounts to be able to bet Shavkat anytime soon. I think he's always going to be very, very well respected, and you're going to be forced to pay up big, heavy prices on him, even against talented young fighters like Machado Garry. So we go to the main event of the evening. First of all, massive shout out to all my supporters. Thank you so much for the kind words. You know, make sure to like, share, comment, all that cliche YouTube stuff. Share it on MySpace. Share it to, you know, whoever. Also, please follow me up on Twitter at the MMA Lewis. You know, I'm gonna try and interact with my supporters a bit more. Grow Twitter. If you have any questions, my DMs are always open. So yeah, that's at the MMA Lewis on X or Twitter. So main event of the evening. This is really quite a intriguing matchup, man. Obviously, the UFC likes this Asakura guy. You know, obviously they have high hopes for him. They're putting him right into the deep end, giving him a immediate title shots. And one thing, he's been fighting in Ryzen, right? And all the fights in Ryzen are in the ring. So it's not a cage, it's not an octagon. he's predominantly kind of like a striker. And I thought he'd be a grappler because we've seen a lot of these kind of new generation Japanese flyweights come through, and they all seem to be really, really strong, competent grapplers. But Asakura, he's a little bit different. He's actually a striker. And, I think his striking looks good, man. Like, I think he's got that kind of flyweight skill. He's very kind of sharp, fast, precise with his striking. When it comes to his grappling, I feel like this could be a potential flaw, especially against Pantoja, who I consider a high-level kind of BJJ practitioner when it comes to the grappling. Asakura's fight got taken down. Obviously, he had some get-ups and stuff, but, Pantoja's going to be a big step up in competition when it comes to the grappling, the BJJ aspect of the game. So, Pantoja, champion, I think he's defended the belt a couple of times, being in there with a who's who. This guy's a bulldog, he's very he's got very, very good hardware. He's very, very physical. He's very, very aggressive with his approach. He's powerful when he throws these strikes. He's mainly got like a boxing style of attack. He likes to just come forward, swing for it, trust his chin, which is legendary. Like, his chin is absurd, bruv. Like, this guy's durability is crazy. You probably couldn't knock him out with a sledgehammer, but everyone's due a knockout loss, right? Especially as you age up. But maybe his striking's not as kind of clean as a technical as a lot of these other flyweights, but he just makes up for it by just being a brute, coming forward, just really swinging for it. He's a guy who looks like he's gonna gas, and he starts to huff and puff, and you're like, oh yeah, shit, this guy's gonna slow down, momentum swing, but he'll fight hard. Don't be deceived. Let's just put it that way. Don't be deceived by his gas tank. As mentioned, high level BJJ game. Now, go to the prediction betting line. This one's a little bit tricky for me because, from what I see, I agree with kind of Pantoja being a favourite because he's more proven inside the UFC. The level of opposition he's faced, who he's defeated, he probably got some grappling, wrestling, BJJ upside in this matchup. And yeah, but when you go to the betting line, you're paying up 1.38. You're not getting any discounts here. Asakura, he's a young, talented fighter with good striking, and we don't truly know what we're getting, right? He could be making improvements fight to fight. He could come in here looking really, really good. Pantoja is 34. He's had a lot of fights. How long is he going to be able to hold the belt for? You see this kind of scenario play out often. The champion looks invincible. No one's going to beat him, but a lot of upsets do happen in championship fights. So, the betting line seems justified based on his experience, his skill set, the stylistic matchup, especially with the grappling. But Asakura, he could be kind of interesting as like a high risk option, high risk, high reward play. But yeah, I thought I'd be like I thought I'd have like an easier time betting this fight, but I think my gut says I could smell an upset in this one, but logically, going off tape, going off experience, you have to go with Pantoja, right? I wouldn't be betting Pantoja personally. I wouldn't be chucking into my parlays, using them as an accumulator. Maybe some of you guys disagree. That's cool if you do. I think pre-fight wise, probably a dog or pass, but I'll probably live bet this one, see what we get out of Asakura, and see if there's a potential live bet there. That's how I'm probably gonna play this fight. I'll be looking to target the live betting markets.